My name is Anthony Donovan. I am in my Senator Chuck Schumer's office, and I want to thank you, Alexandra, here is allowing me to record myself. And I want to thank the office and Senator Schumer for allowing me to speak a moment what's on my mind. I'm a fifth generation New Yorker. I want to say that next week, my family, the McAllister tugboat family and towing shipping family, is celebrating its 160th year in New York City, Incorporated. It's going to be held at the Intrepid, which is in the harbor of New York. So it's a big moment for my family and our New York heritage. and I want to say that my father, I was born in a military hospital in Germany. My father was a captain of a MASH unit when the great threat of Russia invading Germany, West Germany at the time, was imminent. And I was born there. My parents are both from Brooklyn. And I want to say that Marge McAllister, Senator Schumer, you just mentioned that name and he'll know who that is. Marge McAllister was his kindergarten teacher. And about 10 years ago, I called out her name and Chuck turned around and said, "Best teacher in the world." So I thank him for saying that, and I want him to know that she said that he was a good boy. So I said, "So you knew Chuck Schumer?" He goes, "Yes, in my class, he was a good boy." But Chuck, I'm going to ask you to remember what Marge taught, and she would take me to kindergarten with her sometimes. I don't know if I got into your classroom, but what she taught us in kindergarten was to respect others, to not take from others, and to be nice to each other, to be kind. It's all right. If you need to take that, go for it. And she went on, Marge McAllister went on, as he probably knows, to direct New York City's Early Childhood Department of Education. So, and at a time when they had 70 different languages. It's quite a task. So I just wanted to remind him of that. In my family, my father and my uncle was a Marine, and my McAllister uncles were in the Navy. So we come from a long heritage. But I have to say that I truly, truly abhor what is happening, what's been happening in Palestine. And we have no right. And I do believe that Chuck, you and many members of the Congress, who I respect personally, will be coming up on charges someday if we survive the catastrophe that we're continuing with today, on criminal charges for criminal behavior. I mean, what is happening, bombing hospitals, schools, these are clear war crimes, no excuse. And I don't know why our Congress, not just you're not alone here, on December 8th of last year, December 8th, why we didn't see clearly that this was not about self-defense. And we still say the word self-defense for Israel right now. They have gone, on that first day, it became very clear to me when all those high-rises were being bombed, saying, "Oh yeah, Hamas is in there, Hamas is in Hamas." This was not self-defense. This was vast murder and blowing up of hospitals and infrastructure. So it's clear. I also want you to know that I worked all through the HIV epidemic. I helped form home health companies back then during HIV, which devastated New York, the LGBT community especially, but many people in New York. So I helped form home health companies to respond to that, and volunteered all throughout COVID before we even knew what it was at Soup Kitchen, the Catholic Worker on 3rd Street, helped serve food every day to hundreds of New Yorkers coming for food throughout the epidemic before we even had masks. But I am a hospice nurse. I've been a hospice nurse for many years. And I also directed the medical clinic for New York City's largest homeless shelter on Ward's Island, 1,200 beds shelter. I managed the medical clinic. And I say this not out of bragging about anything, but just to know that I'm in very much in touch when I see every day children being blown apart in Palestine and elsewhere in the world, Ukraine, Russia, and these are our bombs being used. I know what it takes me to change a dressing on the ward that I work in presently. I'm retired. It can sometimes take me an hour to change one dressing for a cancer patient, if it's an intricate dressing. So I cannot imagine every day, I can't imagine what the medical personnel who are being bombed and killed themselves go through trying to save lives. I just can't imagine without equipment, without blood supplies that we have. So I feel this very deeply, what's happening, and we have to stop the killing. I've been standing every Thursday at lunch hour in front of our U.S. UN mission on First Avenue, right across from the UN, our mission. I stand with a big sign saying, "Stop killing." That's all. Stop killing. Yes, that means Hamas, but that means mainly Israel. They're the ones doing the mass slaughtering of innocent people. Call it what you want. If you can't say the word genocide, it is the mass slaughter of innocent people. All right, there's some Hamas in there, but that is indiscriminate killing. I want to make it also very clear, as he would know, that Marge McAllister, I have never been, and I never will be, anti-Semitic. Every cause I've ever fought for in my adult life, for a better life for all, against wars, for social justice, for racial concerns, anything I have fought for. There have been Jewish friends, colleagues, and allies together. So when people call me anti-Semitic when I'm standing in front of the mission with my sign saying "Stop killing," I'm calling for a ceasefire for over a year now. We're not listening, and the United States is vetoing all the initiatives. And when we had a Palestinian leader who was willing to do what it took, he was assassinated in Tehran the day the new president of Tehran was being inaugurated as president. So I'm sorry I'm going on, but there are three really important things. One is stop, please, funding the bombs, and Israel can't do any of this. Israel can't do any of this without U.S. funding. We know this. Chuck knows this. We have to stop the spigot. They are on a spree for over a year. It's been 100 years, but this past year has been horrid. And yes, Israel has a right to exist, but it does not have a right, Zionists do not have a right to murder innocent people and to violate international and our national laws. This brings me to Iran. I've been to Iran. If anyone in this office, and Chuck, if you want to speak to me about Iran, I've been interviewing Iranian diplomats since 1983. I've been to Iran. They have been reaching out to negotiate with us. And I want to give you a statement of the vice president. I'm going to give it to the office, and I want you to listen to it. He is pleading for reason and to negotiate for dialogue with the United States. He does not want war with anyone. Not Israel, nobody, not us. So let's do the hard work of negotiating. You don't negotiate with your friends. You negotiate with people you call your enemies. And so I really appreciate listening to that statement and negotiating with our perceived enemies. Iran called us right after 9/11. I think they were the first people. They offered us help. They allowed us to use their airspace. They knew Al-Qaeda. Now Al-Qaeda is evidently our friends. So they offered their help, and we rebuffed them, and we're rebuffing them now and ever since. They had a wonderful, the JCPOA agreement to work on to allow us inspectors to come and inspect their nuclear facilities. We, the United States, walked out of this. They welcomed us back, and we haven't done it. Biden administration was supposed to do it. And we blame them for everything. We're blaming them, Iran, for terror in the region. I'm sorry. Iran doesn't see themselves as terrorists. Neither do I. Once you get to know what they're up to. They are supporting people that are trying to defend themselves from a lot of terror. If you don't think what's happening in Palestine is terror, I'm sorry, it is. And we have assassinated many, many Iranians over this issue. Please, we need to stop our assassination programs, the Mossad, the CIA. Let's dialogue, let's talk, please. Contact me if you need help, but you can go directly. But if you need help, please contact me. I'm happy to help with that. The last thing I'll talk to you about, well, besides, let's stop sending missiles into Russia. I know you don't like Putin. I'm called a Putin sympathizer, which I've never been, because I don't want war, and I don't want nuclear war with Russia. And they've been warning us to please stop sending our missiles into Russia. We're not doing that. We are provoking war, and we are putting ourselves on the edge of world destruction, of destruction of humanity. So I'd like to stop our sanctions on Iran and Cuba, for that matter. The Cuban Missile Crisis, that's where the world almost ended there. So this nuclear weapon, next month in January, here in D.C., in Arlington, next to the Pentagon, we have our 3 days Nuclear Deterrence Summit. It is absolutely obscene that we are spending trillions of our dollars without any discussion with the public, with our citizens about this. The citizens don't know that we are leading the nuclear arms race. We are blaming it on Russia, China, and even Iran that don't have one. But it is really up to us to show leadership, to get back to the table. We're violating the NPT treaty, which we brought to the UN in 1968, ratified in 1970. This body that I'm standing in this office of, we ratified this treaty. And in that treaty, it calls for us negotiating sincerely and as soon as we can the end with Russia, with whomever had nuclear weapons at the time. Negotiate a treaty to get rid of start in that direction. So we have a treaty now, another treaty that supports the NPT. It's called the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. 70 some odd countries have ratified it, and it is asking once again that Russia, United States, China start the process of not escalating nuclear weapons, but de-escalating, negotiate, dialogue, stop spending our trillions of dollars when we need money for housing, for our student loans, for health care. You name it. I can't go on. But we need our war machine to please stop. So please, I asked Senator Schumer to step into this conference. It's right here at the Marriott Hotel. I'd like him to please step in and observe for himself our mad race, the actual delusional thinking that is going on, that we can survive a nuclear war. That's actually we can survive a nuclear war, and we're going to win it. So that's the thinking that is going on with our Pentagon, our Nuclear National Security Administration, our DOE, our DOD, our corporations, of course, are all there behind it. So I asked him to go and check this out. He might agree with everyone there. They're saying our ultimate danger is China and Russia, but we're not showing wisdom that we learned in kindergarten, that we learned in all our past treaties, that we learned in 1980s. Chuck, you were around in the 1980s. You saw millions of us citizens stand up and say no to nuclear weapons. We did that very clearly. The people do not want to destroy themselves around the world. So let's negotiate. Let's start a process that pulls back from this mad race that we're leading and spending trillions of dollars. We have an environment to save and to focus on. Our children, our grandchildren need this environment to survive. You and I, we've lived a good life. We're leaving soon, but we owe it to our children and grandchildren. I'll end by saying I just came back from Vietnam with the Veterans for Peace, a great organization. These are veterans that smell war before it starts. And I went to Vietnam because they are still 55 years later finding bombs that we dropped 55, 60 years ago, still killing people, farmers in fields. So we help them locate and detonate. It's called Project Renew. So please support these kind of measures of U.S. citizens that feel responsible for that war. And we also dumped, as you know, tons of poison, dioxin throughout Vietnam. And I went to wards, orphanages, where children are still suffering from our chemicals. So please support those measures in our Congress that are sending some support there for them dealing with their Agent Orange victims and dioxin victims. Of course, as the generations go on, that's happening less and less, thank God, but it's still going on. So that's why I love the Veterans for Peace. They take our wars seriously. And when I think of all the bombs we're dropping on Palestine, Russia, and Ukraine right now, we're going to be paying for that poison for many, many decades in the future. We forget that. We don't realize that we will pay for decades for what we're doing today. So God bless you. That was longer than I thought. I'm really happy not too many people came in, but please do all you can. And I hope we can stop the killing today. And I hope we can get to the table and negotiate saying this. I don't care who's president. The past president did nothing but listen to what Netanyahu is here. How many times did they stand up and cheer for him? 50? Cheering and clapping him. And you know what he was calling for. He was calling for the destruction of Iran. I beg you to please stop that. Iran can be a great ally in the region. They do not want war. They want to share resources. They're intelligent, ancient culture and ancient people. They're smart, and they love Americans, people to people. They welcome this. Do not listen to Netanyahu. He's gotten us, and the neocons in this town. They've gotten us into all these destructive wars. Did they help us? We've spent too many trillions on our wars. God bless. Thank you very much.